1. The invasion of Asia Minor, 334 to 333 BCE. Alexander began his campaign against the Persian Empire in 334 BCE by crossing the Hellespont, modern Dardanelles, into Asia Minor, effectively stepping onto Persian soil. His goal was clear: to conquer the vast Achaemenid Empire, which had long been a formidable power in the region. His first significant engagement, the Battle of Granicus, took place near the Granicus River, where Alexander's army clashed with a Persian force that included Greek mercenaries. The Macedonian phalanx, with its long sarissas, spears, proved nearly invincible, and Alexander's cavalry, led by his elite companion cavalry, shattered the Persian lines. The victory at Granicus opened up Asia Minor to Macedonian control and secured Alexander's position as a serious contender against the Persian Empire. Alexander continued southward, liberating Greek cities along the Ionian coast and securing their loyalty through a mix of diplomacy and military force. His reputation grew as he honored local customs and established Macedonian garrisons, ensuring these cities could contribute resources and soldiers to his growing army. 2. The Battle of Issus and the Siege of Tyre, 333 to 332 BCE. In 333 BCE, Alexander encountered King Darius III himself at the Battle of Issus. This clash was critical, as Darius commanded a vast army to defend his empire from the Macedonian upstart. The battle took place in a narrow mountain pass near the Panaris River, limiting Darius's numerical advantage. Alexander's tactics were bold. He personally led the charge against Darius's position. The Persian forces, thrown into chaos, eventually fled when Darius retreated, abandoning his family and royal entourage in the process. This victory had a monumental psychological impact, further legitimizing Alexander's claim to Persian territories and demoralizing the Persian ranks. Following Issus, Alexander faced a formidable challenge at the Siege of Tyre, a coastal city with fortified walls surrounded by the sea. Unable to breach Tyre's defenses by traditional means, Alexander ordered the construction of a massive causeway to reach the city's walls. After 7 months of grueling labor and fighting, Tyre finally fell. Alexander's determination and engineering ingenuity during the siege illustrated his unbreakable resolve and resourcefulness. 3. The conquest of Egypt, 332 to 331 BCE. After the fall of Tyre, Alexander marched southward into Egypt, which had long been under Persian rule. However, the Egyptian people welcomed Alexander as a liberator, embracing him as a successor to the ancient pharaohs. The Persians had imposed harsh rule over Egypt, and Alexander's arrival symbolized freedom to many Egyptians. Alexander visited the oracle of Zeus Ammon at the Siwa oasis, where he was reportedly declared the son of Zeus, affirming his belief in his divine destiny. Embracing this notion, he took on the title of pharaoh. During his stay, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, which would become one of the ancient world's most important cultural and intellectual centers. Egypt's submission without a fight was a major strategic win, providing him with resources and reinforcing his status as a world leader. 4. The decisive Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BCE. With Egypt secured, Alexander turned his attention back to Darius, who was regrouping his forces in Persia. The decisive clash came in 331 BCE at the Battle of Gaugamela, near modern-day Iraq. Darius had assembled a massive army, possibly numbering in the hundreds of thousands, and equipped with war elephants and chariots fitted with scythe blades. He chose the open plains of Gaugamela to maximize his numerical advantage and encircle the Macedonian forces. Alexander, however, devised a strategic and calculated approach. By leading a cavalry charge to the right, he drew Darius's forces into overextending their lines, creating a critical gap. Sensing the opportunity, Alexander led his companion cavalry directly into this breach, aiming straight for Darius himself. The Persian king, realizing the danger, fled the battlefield. The Persian army quickly fell into disarray, and Alexander's victory was decisive. Gaugamela marked the end of effective Persian resistance and paved the way for Alexander to enter Babylon, Susa, and eventually the Persian capital, Persepolis. 5. The Persian heartland and the burning of Persepolis, 330 BCE. Following Gaugamela, Alexander took control of the Persian heartland. As he entered Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire, Alexander allowed his troops to loot the city's immense wealth. In a symbolic act, he later ordered the city to be set ablaze, possibly as retribution for the Persian invasion of Greece over a century earlier, though some sources suggest it was a drunken decision. The burning of Persepolis was both an assertion of dominance and a dramatic end to the Achaemenid dynasty. By this point, Darius had fled to Bactria but was eventually assassinated by his own satraps. Alexander, upon learning of Darius's death, claimed the Persian throne and ordered an honorable burial, positioning himself as the legitimate ruler of the Persian Empire. 6. The campaigns in Central Asia and Bactria, 329 to 327 BCE. After consolidating power in Persia, Alexander turned his attention to the remote eastern provinces, including Bactria and Sogdia, modern-day Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. These regions were resistant to Macedonian rule, with frequent rebellions and guerrilla tactics employed by local leaders. One of his most notable challenges in this region was the siege of the Sogdian Rock, a fortress that locals believed to be impregnable. Alexander offered amnesty to the defenders if they surrendered, but they taunted him, claiming he would need soldiers with wings to conquer it. Undeterred, Alexander sent climbers to scale the sheer cliffs under the cover of night. When dawn broke, the defenders awoke to see Macedonian soldiers perched above them. They quickly surrendered, cementing Alexander's reputation as an unstoppable force. During this campaign, Alexander married Roxana, a Bactrian princess, as part of his policy of cultural integration. His strategy of marrying local nobility and encouraging his soldiers to do the same was part of his broader vision of a unified empire blending Greek and Persian cultures. 7. The Indian Campaign and the Battle of the Hydaspes, 326 BCE. In 326 BCE, Alexander crossed into India, where he encountered King Porus, a formidable ruler who commanded an army that included war elephants, something Alexander's forces had never faced. The Battle of the Hydaspes River was one of Alexander's toughest battles, as the elephants wreaked havoc on his infantry. However, Alexander's tactical acumen once again proved decisive. He launched a surprise crossing of the river upstream and attacked Porus's forces from the rear, eventually securing a hard-won victory. Impressed by Porus's bravery, Alexander allowed him to retain his kingdom, strengthening his hold in the region through alliance rather than sheer force. The Indian campaign, however, marked the limit of Alexander's expansion. His troops, exhausted and eager to return home after years of campaigning, finally mutinied, refusing to march further into the unknown. Reluctantly, Alexander turned back, marking the end of his eastward conquests. The Wars of the Diadochi, 322 to 275 BCE. Following Alexander's death, his closest generals, known as the Diadochi, Greek for successors, began to carve up his empire among themselves. The most powerful of these generals included Ptolemy, who took control of Egypt, Seleucus, who claimed Persia and Mesopotamia, and Antigonus, who governed much of Asia Minor. Each sought not only to retain their territories but to secure dominance over the others, leading to a series of conflicts known as the Wars of the Diadochi. These wars were brutal and spanned decades, as each general tried to assert their own claim as Alexander's true successor. By 275 BCE, the empire had fragmented into three primary Hellenistic kingdoms: the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt, the Seleucid Empire in Persia and the East, and the Antigonid dynasty in Macedonia and Greece. Each of these realms retained elements of Alexander's vision, with Greek culture continuing to influence local customs, governance, and educational systems. The Hellenistic Cultural Revolution. While the political unity of Alexander's empire dissolved, the cultural unity he envisioned took on a life of its own. Greek became the lingua franca across the Hellenistic world, allowing people from different regions to communicate and trade more easily. Alexander's foundation of cities, many of which he named Alexandria, served as hubs of cultural exchange, attracting scholars, artists, and merchants from across the known world. The Library of Alexandria in Egypt, established by the Ptolemies, became the most famous intellectual center of the Hellenistic world, housing hundreds of thousands of scrolls and attracting scholars like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes. It became a symbol of the new world Alexander had created, one where knowledge, science, and art transcended borders. Hellenistic art and philosophy also flourished in this era. Statues became more expressive and realistic, breaking away from the idealized forms of classical Greek art to show emotions and everyday scenes. In philosophy, schools like Stoicism and Epicureanism gained prominence,